So the series is coming off of poor reception of Part 2, so enters the third installment. So that being said, let's take a look at Parts 3 and 4. Kristen is beat from the beginning of this movie, which sets the tone. And throughout this movie, the sleep deprivation is just out of this world. It actually doesn't start off in a dream, so I was wrong with that in my previous video. It's actually her and her mother at the beginning. But she does go into this first dream, and it's very creative. And the little girl that's the skeleton always kind of disgusted me. And as well, the scene where she walks in and there's all those hanging people kind of reminds me of that Braveheart scene. You know, when Wallace, well, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And Kristen's mom, I mean, what a piece of work she is. Her daughter cuts her wrist, and she's at the hospital like complaining about it and saying, I don't want to play games with my daughter and stuff. Like, she cut her wrist, as far as she knows anyways, even though it was actually Freddie. But she's...
I'm not gonna let you get into an argument, not tonight. Now get to sleep.
She's a bitch.
Where do you keep the bourbon?
I'll be right down. Honey, I've got a guest.
And you don't want to keep him waiting.
That's right. I don't.
And a slut. That's right, I said it. Anyway, so, anyways, the characters in this are just downright awesome. They're probably the best characters in the entire series. I mean, we got Heather Langenkamp that comes back, John Saxon makes a brief appearance, but the kids in the hospital, they're just phenomenal. I mean, Kristen, Patricia Arquette, she's pretty hot, and I actually think she's the real Scream Queen. I mean, take a look at this Scream. Anyways, and then there's Taryn. I mean, she's hot too. There should be like a Women of Nightmares on Elm Street like calendar or something that geeks like me can put up and just, you know, goggle at. Anybody notice that teardrop on Joey's eye? Like, what is this? Like Weston Hillside? Okay, what else do I have written down here in my dream? Yeah, Taryn. Taryn is just so cool. I mean, she's playing the geekiest games. I don't know if this is Dungeons and Dragons or something like that.
In the name of Lorik, Prince of Elves, demon be gone.
But she's so cool. She's like this hot chick sitting on the bed playing with these two guys. Not literally, but the game. And they're just loving it, man. I mean, Joey puts on a smile and they're all looking at each other like, yeah, we're playing with a hot chick. Kincaid.
Fuck you! You sit up!
Yeah, man, I just love that guy. He's so full of rage. It's just great. Jennifer is probably my least favorite character out of all the kids there that are in West Hill, whatever. And her kill was probably the most boring. I mean, and why was Zsa Zsa Gabor like this? Anyways, like they announced her in the credits as if she played some big part. But the kill wasn't that good. It was just kind of, I don't know, it was flat for me. But it does have that classic line.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
So, number 3, like I was saying before, the sleep deprivation is off the charts. From being put in rooms and being sedated to just taking shifts at night. Nancy first telling the kids about Freddy Krueger is something that was intense. Like all these kids just reacted to it like, yeah, that's it, that's what's going on in our minds. But again, this is bizarre because how did none of these kids know what happened just a few years prior? They're also different ages as well, I'm assuming. Like the people in the first, like Johnny Depp and stuff, they looked older than these kids. But how many parents exactly burned Freddy Krueger alive? I mean, there's an awful lot of people involved in this. And all these kids are living, so wouldn't some of their siblings have to have been murdered by this guy? Or were these people burning this guy for fun that their kids weren't burnt or weren't killed and then they burnt him? Or were the kids that were killed all single, only children? Like, do you see what I'm talking about? Like, it doesn't add up. So these kids are oblivious across the board that their parents actually burned this guy alive. None of their siblings were affected. They obviously didn't die. So why is nobody aware of this? I just don't get it. Like, it makes no sense. But whatever, it's a fun movie, so I'll just keep going. Okay, fighting Freddy as a team and their powers, it's really cool. It gave it like an adventure type of, it feels more like a fantasy film than a horror film. And it's kind of cool that they wrap up the 80s era when those movies were really popular, like The Goonies and Legend and stuff like that, but wrapping it up in like a horror feel in the 80s. That was pretty cool. It was kind of too bad that Taryn had to die, not just because she's hot, but I mean the way she went out being injected with like Windex or whatever. But that was a pretty cool kill scene, I mean, in the alley and all that. And hey, is there any Stephen King fans out there? Because there's this one particular scene where they walk in and there's this door that Freddy puts up for them. And I don't know if anybody's a fan of the Dark Tower series, but man, it's like spot on the cover of the Drawing of the Three, which is the second book of that series anyway. So here are some things I noticed about Part 3. I guess this is the movie where they established that the house that Nancy lived in was actually is like Freddy's domain. The transition from that never made sense in this series. Like there was never any solid parts that said that was his house. Again, in Part 6, was it Elm Street? I'm not even sure. So this is also the movie where he starts kind of going after your specific fears. Like Philip, or something related to you. Like Philip was an artist, so of course Freddy, which was really cool, the reverse animation that they did with Freddy coming up as a doll. But he died as essentially a marionette doll. Jennifer, she was really into film and television, and she ended up dying in a television. Wheels there, he was being attacked by a wheelchair at one point. That made sense. Taryn with the drugs. So, he was going after something specific in your mind, which is another thought I had. Do you start the dream first and then Freddy enters your world, or does Freddy cloak his world to match yours? It's always something I kind of thought about that I wasn't sure of. But anyways, it's kind of neat that they started doing that. It really only started in number 3 because number 2 and number 1 were just kind of random nightmares as opposed to the rest of the series where it's specific to that person, and that's changed. That number 3, the third installment, changed that sort of pattern for Freddy. My favorite dream in the entire series, bar none, is with Kristen when she pulls Nancy in to the dream in the house. Freddy just whips around the floor. It's such a crazy environment, but it's even the setting is just like 80s. It looks like my basement, this house I used to live in I won't tell you where, but on the other end of the city. It looks so much like it, which was pretty cool. Freddy, though, like when he comes out on the floor, don't you think he kind of looks like a giant... Anyways, whatever. Nancy is, I think she actually gets better looking as the series goes on, and she probably peaks there at Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I'm not going to be talking about. Another thing that I was thinking about, though, was the third movie itself could be its standalone film. Like, if there was no other movies in the series at all, and it was just number 3, Dream Warriors, sure, there'd be some backstory that you wouldn't know about, but it would become even more mysterious. So imagine if they had just put out number 3, what Freddy, how mysterious he would have been as a character at that point. I mean, wow, that would have blown me away. One quick thing that I just had to mention, this is the geek in me. When Jennifer's sitting down in the TV room watching Zsa Zsa Gabor and all that stuff, there's one point where the camera's focused on her. Just listen to the TV in the background. Just give it a listen real hard.
Helen, have you, talked to her about the way things are?
Years ago.
Years?
Did you hear that? That's Critters 3 that she's watching on TV. I'm such a geek, but yeah, that's the part when she's giving the facts of life speech before the critters show up. I just had to mention that because the geek in me came out, so... another thing I don't understand about the movie is, remember Philip when he's doing his little thing as the marionette doll or whatever and Freddy's controlling him? How does he actually physically go through that door in the real world? Does Freddy actually affect that? I mean, it would seem to me that he might be able to do that, but I mean, like maybe inflicting injury, but to put you through something that's not even in the dream is kind of bizarre. It's like in Part 6, with the stoner guy, I forget his name, with that ridiculous bouncing thing when Freddy's controlling him with the Nintendo controller. But anyways, that's something that I haven't really figured out in my mind, whether that makes sense or not. They also call Freddy son of 100 maniacs or whatever, which I get it. Like, I mean, his mother was in with 100 maniacs, and you know she was raped and all that, but only one tadpole, like, you know what I mean? But anyway, whatever. The junkyard setting where the bones are laid, that was just the coolest. I remember that was one part in the original NES game that I used to play, and it always kind of spooked me. It's just a really cool setting, cool atmosphere there. As for Dr. Gordon, does anybody else think that this guy is just a complete geek? I mean, everything he says, he thinks he's like some tough guy. Like, he throws over the table, and like John Saxon would totally kick this guy's ass, so I don't even know why he did that. And not only that, he's a snoop too. Like, Nancy drops her purse, and he like picks up her pill bottle and like reads it, and then he goes home and like looks it up. Like, mind your business, buddy. It's not like she's going through your wallet looking at all the condoms you'll never be able to use because you're such a freaking geek. But whatever, that's Dr. Gordon. I guess he plays an important part, whatever. Okay, another thing about the entire series, what the hell is with the pigs? The pigs. I don't get it. What's with the pigs? I mean, there's a pig in number 3, and then I know I'm not talking about this movie specifically, but then there's like a ton of pigs in the new movie that came out. What's the relationship between Freddy and pigs? Was he a farmer? Does he like bacon? Like, I mean, what the hell? It doesn't make sense. But I don't know, it kind of adds to the... I don't know what it adds to, but it's just bizarre. Lawrence Fishburne is in this, and he's just awesome. I mean, just coming off of Apocalypse Now, he wasn't really that well known. I first recall him as Cowboy Curtis on Pee-wee's Playhouse. I don't know if anybody... I don't know how old the people are that are watching this, but if you're around my age, you probably caught that. He's Cowboy Curtis. But he'll probably always be known as Morpheus, which is... I mean... he kicked ass in that movie. So yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's awesome. The dream sequences as far as number 4 go didn't captivate me as much as number 3. I'm not sure that they were any less imaginative or anything like that. There's just something about them that was less subtle. The atmosphere wasn't as good, but it wasn't bad. Like, I know Debbie's scene was just so blatant that she was afraid of cockroaches and bugs and things like that. But it was a little bit much, although the theater scene was pretty cool, I gotta admit that. And then Tuesday Night, of course, I gotta address this. She replaces Patricia Arquette. But I know it's her stage name, Tuesday Night, but it's just so stupid. Like, if she had a band, would she have like somebody else named like Thursday Afternoon and like Friday Morning and like Saturday Evening Kickbacks? Or like, I mean, it's just, what a name to choose for your stage name. And there's no way she was born with that name, Tuesday Night. Like, her parents, like, unless they want to call her Moonshine or something, but whatever. Just to jump ahead, if there's something to address in this series, why don't they address the kids skipping rope? I mean, it's in a lot of these scenes periodically throughout the entire series. It's creepy, but there's no real link to what it actually means. I guess besides the fact that Freddy attacks children or whatever. Another thing, maybe they could actually address the pigs. I know I go on about this, the pigs. What's with Pat the pigs? But what is with the pigs? So that's another thing that they might have wanted to address. So, yeah. Okay, so this movie, the way it's set up, number 4, is you have the old crowd from number 3. You got Kincaid and Joey and Kristen, the survivors of number 3. And then they totally get rubbed out right at the beginning and on to the new cast of characters. And I get that they wanted more characters involved. That makes sense to extend the movie and then potentially extend the series. I guess they knew that they had something here, obviously after 3 films. So they wanted to bring in more characters, I guess to potentially extend the series. But wouldn't it have been cool, you like the horns in the background? Wouldn't it have been cool if they had just taken those 3 characters and made the whole movie about Freddy going after them? Then Freddy's Revenge, the title, would make more sense. So number 2 could actually be number 4. That might make more sense. But then Freddy would win in the end, and that would be kind of like a 70s throwback to when films kind of ended on that. Like Halloween, the original, where Michael doesn't win, but essentially doesn't lose either. One thing I noticed is, do you notice Joey's pretty jacked in this movie? Like, the guys must have been pumping iron. Another thing is that the 3rd movie and the 4th movie just nailed it on the music. It's just totally 80s. From Sinead O'Connor to whatever. It was just Dokken and all that. And not only that, Tuesday Night being a singer as well kind of puts, someone in the music industry actually in the movie. So the music part was fantastic. I loved it. One thing about Sheila, she kind of drives me nuts. Listen to her.
No, you see, asthma is an inherited condition. Read a book now and then, you might know something.
Fuck you, you're a nerd, whatever. What else did I write down here in my dream? Another horn. In my dream, I must be dreaming in traffic. So, Debbie with the bug, the cockroach and the fries. I mean, did the person making the fries not notice a cockroach go in, or is it like he just scooped a cockroach? Or did she put the fries down on the ground and leave it for a couple hours and then pick it back up, which is absolutely disgusting. So how that bug actually got in there was a little bit much. I didn't understand that. I mean, did she pick it up after a few days? I don't know. You know when Rick and his sister walk by the lockers and then you see Freddy's claw marks? That kind of reminds me of the new release, which I shouldn't be talking about because that I don't consider canon, but the pharmacy where Freddy's kind of interacting in and out of the dream world and the real, which leads me to believe that he can kind of combine realms, I guess, which would make sense and explain a lot of part 6. Rick, as far as him doing karate, I mean, he's hilarious. I mean, he looks like this total wimp. And what's with the Japanese theme? I get it, martial arts, but isn't karate Chinese or something? I mean, I don't know, who cares, but when Freddy comes back to life, I mean, in Kincaid's dream, the dog pissing fire, really? Okay. But Freddy coming to life is pretty cool. I guess it was another one of those wax melting type of things where they do reverse video. There's one thing that Tuesday Night's character, Kristen, says to Alice regarding dreams.
Did you ever hear of the Dream Master?
Sounds like a game show host to me.
No, it's a rhyme. Just have to dream about someplace fun. Remember, you're in control.
How do you know so much about dreams?
So what advice did she actually give her about dreams? How do you know so much about dreams? She just said, you're in control. Okay. Well, clearly they're not because Freddy's killing them and they definitely don't want that. So control's kind of an issue here. And I'm not sure how she's an expert on dreams. Why? Because she daydreams? And Alice's character, she takes on the powers of other people, which is kind of pretty cool. Makes me wonder why Alice didn't, or not Alice, but why Kristen didn't do that in the first one. But she gets Kristen's power, and then every time somebody dies, she takes on a new power, which is pretty cool. But as far as Kristen's personality,
I don't smoke.
okay, so she doesn't smoke. Didn't she notice this when she went to the store to pick up the pack of smokes? Didn't it occur to her then? Or was she given these things from somebody else? These smokes? I mean, at what point did she acquire these smokes and not notice that she didn't smoke until she actually took the cigarette out and was about to light it? So I didn't really get that. The diner was pretty cool because it kind of gave it that malt shop feeling. And Dan kind of complimented it with that, that high school football jacket and all that stuff. Maybe that's what they're going for, the late 40s feel. Because even her outfit is kind of something I don't know, out of the 40s. I don't know how else to explain it. Alice has probably the best fight scene with Freddy. I mean, it's kind of like Luke and Vader, these two people that are masters of dreams. Or I guess Alice is supposed to be the dream master, but Freddy kind of, would say takes the cake with that one. Anyways, Freddy's death was pretty gross. I mean, all those hands and stuff coming out. Some pretty cool effects inside the body, which was pretty cool. But, I mean, at the end of it, you just knew that there was going to be a sequel. You see him in the pond, or the wishing pond, or whatever the hell those people throw coins into. And you just knew number 5 was coming out. And it turned out a year later, you got number 5. Okay, so to conclude my thoughts on parts 3 and 4, number 3 it might even be my favorite in the series, to tell you the truth. It may top number 1, just because I thought it was so imaginative. There's more characters involved. Felt like a fantasy adventure movie mixed in with horror. Number 4, in my opinion, dropped off a bit. It's still entertaining, and I can still go back and watch it and enjoy myself any time. So it's great for stuff like that. Number 5 and 6 I do like for different reasons, and that'll be the next review that I'll be doing. Again, the characters number 3 just so strong. The characters in number 4, not as strong, but the overall feel of the movies, it's just so 80s. Debbie with the big hair and the clothing, the music that they put in it and all that. So all in all, very rewatchable. Number 3 definitely the strongest. Stay tuned for parts 5 and 6 on my next review of my perspective on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Thanks a lot. See you then. Bye-bye.